You're listening to the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox Podcast, the podcast that keeps your practice sharp and your clients happy. I'm your host, immigration lawyer John Khosravi, and every week we're bringing you insights, tips, and real-world conversations with top immigration attorneys and industry leaders. Whether you're here to grow your practice, stay on top of the latest trends, or get inspired, you're in the right place. Ready? Let's go. Hello, fellow Toolboxers. Welcome to episode number 434 of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox Podcast. A great interview with our colleague, very experienced in the business, Jeffrey O'Brien, which I should have interviewed a long time ago. So much good content that comes from technology, that comes from. Definitely going to have him on the show more often to discuss various matters, but that'd be good to have an introductory call for our audience. You get to know him for those who don't already know him. So I'm going to enjoy that one a lot. It's going to be really interesting. And we don't go into as much tech, but he's really he's a maverick in the technological side. We do actually get into it. His nonprofit that he has, definitely worth listening to and worth connecting with him. Get to know the work that he's involved in. It's very interesting stuff. It's going to be very helpful for your practice, especially because he does the stuff I don't do: removal, asylum, and trying to create systems there that could just make things more manageable. It's so important because of how hard it is. I do want to thank the sponsor of this podcast episode of the magazine, the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine number 10 is out where another month or two will get out, issue number 11. If you want to get an article in, and maybe starting to get too late, but just send me an email, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. But e-immigration by Serenade, we've been talking about it for a long time. They're a great service, and they're actually having a webinar on Wednesday, December 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific, and it's called The Keys to Building Resilience in Immigration Law for 2026. A great panel there talking about practice management and the issues that exist with developing your team. Raquel Gomez, a staff, he's going to be there too. That's a big shot CEO right there. That has a lot of information knowledge that can help, as well as my friend Trinity, head of marketing at Immigration, and Anna Paris, vice president of client services at Success at Staffy. I'm not familiar with her, but I'm sure if Raquel is the tiger that she is, she's going to have staff members and team members that are really top. So if you want that, we'll have a link to the registration page for that. But it's December 4th, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, Keys to Building Resilience in Immigration Law of 2026. And speaking of live shows, one of our most popular programs we had, the Immigration Lawyer Toolbox, is the consular processing training. So many immigration lawyers don't know where to start that, don't know the nuances because they don't necessarily do a lot of consular processing. But it's going to be growing with the lack of ability of people to do adjustment of status in the United States. So it's very important to know that. How does a contract look? How do you charge on that? What are the pain points that you got to be prepared for? How to prepare for administrative processing, DS-55, 35, different country issues, embassy issues. There's a wide range of problems that people need to be aware of getting into it because consular processing it's very misleading. You think it's going to be simpler than it's actually going to be every time. It always takes much longer than you think it is. So I have a live course, and it's going to be on December 18th, 10 a.m. Pacific. We're going to train it. We already have a recorded course on this as part of our larger marriage immigration, family immigration, marriage immigration course. But I want to do an update and a live one. It's going to be about 2 hours. Maybe if there's extra, we'll do a follow-up and addendum. But it's discounted. It's much cheaper to do this live, just on consular processing. Not going to get into IS-64s, but focusing on the embassy package, DS-260, the documents I uploaded, dealing with the embassy. We'll have a link to the registration page with the information. The sooner you get, the cheaper. So if you get it sooner right now, you'll see the price lower. I don't want to say a price is going to go up. I should make it there to go up, but if you want to register, do as soon as possible. It's coming up in a month and a half or less than that. Or it's a month and a half actually. And the registration will be in the show notes wherever you're watching this. Or if you can't find it, just email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Having said that, I think I got to talk about other stuff, but we'll just leave it at that for now. None of the information provided here is intended as individual legal guidance. Please consult with an attorney about your case, but y'all know that already. Let's get the show started. Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
You got it. We've talked because we have our meetings with Ruby and again know each other. And then I was like, wait, I've never had you on the show before to really dig into your background and help, other immigration lawyers learn more about you if they don't know already. Could you start letting me know about where you grew up and how you got into immigration law?
Sure. I grew up here in California, Los Angeles, and went to law school a little bit late, about 5 years after I graduated undergrad. Once I graduated from law school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I started off in intellectual property. It didn't really fit me. And then I took a couple of pro bono asylum cases, and I started working with people from different countries around the world, countries that I'd never worked with people or understood much about. And once I did that, I realized, okay, this can be a fascinating career if I'm working with people from all around the world. I can't travel to all these places necessarily, but if I can bring the whole world to me, then I can experience a lot of what's
Yeah.
going on in the world. I can hear a lot about it. And it spoke to me. That was the only kind of law that really spoke to me at that point. And so I just decided to dive right into it.
Yeah, it resonates with me too. Is you're living vicariously through all of these people who go through like intense lives, and it's like a private intelligence network because we actually know what's going on the ground as people are telling us everything. So it's better than CNN. When a news event happens, they're calling your office for help. So you hear Ukraine stuff before other people or other kinds of events that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating too, because if you were to go to vacation all these places, you go to the big cities and you live a tourist life. But when you work with people on how they lived in their home countries and what they experience, you get to spend hours with people really understanding their culture, their life, what their country is like without the tourists involved, without having to go to the big cities only.
Now you mentioned you grew up in LA. What part of LA are you from?
San Gabriel Valley,
Tell me.
you know where
Okay.
that is?
I don't
So
go there,
I
but it's a whole area. It's got good Asian food.
Most people don't know it. Yeah, they San Fernando Valley, but it's east of It's about 20 miles east of Los Angeles. Yeah.
But I'm not. When I was in law school, I dated a young woman from there, so I spent Montebello as part of there. Is I
Yeah, yeah. The specific city I grew up in was Glendora near St. Demas.
Oh, wow, San Dimas. Okay, I drive there going to Vegas. Yeah, that's far out, but I always drive out. This is a nice area. It's like the freeway's nice. It's quiet. At least the freeway when I pass through it, I'm like, this is a good area. It's very calm.
It's a bedroom community, is what they call it. Yeah.
And then when you graduated from college, that 5 year gap between law school, what'd you get yourself involved in?
I was wandering the world a little bit. I went to Germany, excuse me, for about a year. And that's where I ended up meeting my wife. She's not from Germany. She's actually from Texas, but we were both there having just graduated from undergrad and we're exploring. We ended up in the same city of Bonn, Germany. So I was there for a while. And that was actually where I got my first taste of what it's like to live as like a foreigner in another country, right? Because I didn't have papers technically to be there. And so I was working under the table and was definitely a second class citizen, which was different for me. It would be different for people in America because we usually don't experience that. Well, when you're going, you don't necessarily understand the language. You're trying to make ends meet, taking whatever odd jobs you can, and seeing how like society looks at you, responds to you. That was probably a very influential experience in my path towards immigration eventually.
Yeah.
But after that, I didn't have law school as a top priority for me. In fact, I was just doing IT support desk, helping people with their little IT related questions. And then later on, I decided, I said, you know what, if I want to help people, because I really had that feeling, that urge, I said, I need to get some more education, potentially law school, which allowed me to open up a lot of opportunities.
I see. And did you ever pick up any German at all, or did you still remember?
Yeah, natürlich. Yeah, yeah. After living with German people for a long time, it's something you have to figure out. And again, it's when you're jumping into another culture with that they speak German at home. And if I want to eat, if I want to talk to people, hang out, have coffee, then you're going to have to learn the language. You can get to a certain superficial level with everyone with English, of course, because everyone speaks some generally. But if you really want to get to a deeper level and really understand them and have them kind of respect you as well, I think it's important to learn the language.
How long did it take you?
I'm still learning. But while I was there, by the time I left after about a year, I could speak about politics, which is what I wanted to get to at that point.
Oh wow, well, that's a pretty high level. And then picking politics in Germany, that's a that's a risky thing to do.
But it's one of those things. The Germans are very into their politics,
Mhm.
right? And they're very into kind of debates, and they respect people who want to have a debate. They don't want to just be. They think of American culture as a bit superficial. They're not really engaged. And so that was one of the easy things to get into with people. If you want to get to know people, like have something to say about what's going on in the US, and like everyone's hanging around.
Cool. All right, so you got into immigration law, and you mentioned doing pro bono stuff. I saw a post on Facebook from our colleagues, like if now's not the time anymore with how complicated things got to jump in and do a pro bono asylum case, especially with the apparently last Friday there was some big case that came about third country safe zones and stuff like that. But I guess 15 years ago, it wasn't as crazy. I remember I did the couple of asylum cases I did back then too. I remember there was the updates for. I went to the front of the judge, and I didn't get like a California like a police report, and she's yelling at me saying, "Where's that?" And there was some sort of there's a term for it, but Cal DOJ. Like you didn't get the Cal DOJ. I'm like, what's the Cal DOJ? For in the court, I was like, so I learned like in 2005 they updated the things, whatever. But But did you jump into doing like asylum cases first, or how did you get? Did you work for another firm, or did you start your own practice? Which direction did you go once you decided to go this into immigration law?
Yeah, I just jumped in. I knew it would be a challenge, but I knew that the the immigration legal community will be supportive. So I knew that we weren't real competitive with one another, and so I could go to advice. I could find mentors,
Hmm.
and I still believe that. And I just jumped into it. I just hung up my shingle, took on some cases, and the first time I went to court was my own case. Right. And so I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. I still remember the first time I went in. You have to, for those of your listeners who don't know, probably most of them don't know, but you have to submit a paper to the judge called an E-28 before you can appear before anybody. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do with that paper. So I walked into the court. I sat down in one of those rows in the bench in the back of the courtroom with my client. And I watched everyone do their thing. And I was the last one there. And she's, "What are you here for?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm an attorney." And so you go and you make these mistakes. You don't know what you're doing. And so you look amateurish, but no one really jumps down your throat. It's pretty unusual for them to get really upset. At least you're in San
Yeah.
Francisco. I think there's different personalities, but yeah, certainly a lot of kind of what you had experienced. You have to go and trial
Yeah.
by fire. Yeah, yeah. And see what happens.
So you developed your practice, and you're heavy into it. You're still going to court and the removal, and you're doing bond hearings. Like when I talk, you always do some stuff I would never do. I'm like, oh man, there's so much work to do. Know what you do. How do you manage it? What does your team look like right now?
So there are about four attorneys going to work, and we have support staff of about 15 to 20, depending on how we're counting them. We have several overseas. We have a support staff of about four that are in Nicaragua. And then we have someone in Colombia, Ecuador. Obviously, for Spanish speaking cases, they can help us.
Hmm.
But it helps hiring people abroad, obviously, can help keep the costs low
Yeah.
for our clients. Most of our clients don't have a lot of money. And so we're always looking for efficiencies and ways to bring costs down. And then we have a sports staff of about 10 here. Yeah. In the two offices, we have an office in Stockton, here in Berkeley. And yeah, so that's about it.
And what are the focus practice areas? If they ask what kind of immigration law do you, what would you say are your go-tos?
Definitely, it would be asylum. And there's two types of asylum for those who don't know or practice, but there's the affirmative asylum, which is when you're in the United States and you say, "Hey, look, I can't go back to my home country." Maybe you flew here from another country, maybe you flew from China, India, anywhere. And then maybe you come as a tourist or a student, you say, "I can't go back." You file affirmatively with the government. You give them your papers and say, "Hey, I want to stay here." And then there's a second type called defensive, which is people who cross the border and say, "Hey, look, I can't," usually through Mexico, but they come from all over the world and they come up across the border. And when they come across the border and they're caught by the Customs and Border Protection, then they basically say, "Hey, look, I want to apply for asylum." And that's called defensive.
Hmm.
And those people, the people who come across the border, are usually put into immigration court right away. And so that's when you see a judge. And the other people who come and say, "Here's my application," they see an asylum officer. And so those are probably, asylum is probably 60% of our cases. And then the rest is a lot of family based petition or humanitarian petition. So like U visas, people who are victims of crimes in the
Hmm.
United States. But for myself and for the other lawyers, for the staff, this is what we enjoy. I know some people stick to other just like family based matters or maybe business immigration. What we do is pretty intense
Yeah.
because of stories of what people are going through, but also the stakes of everything, very high stakes if someone doesn't win their case. And I got to say that like sometimes I wish I didn't have that pressure, but on the other hand, that's what's the most exciting part of my
Hmm.
business as well.
What is Mobile Pathways about? I thought it was your firm is called Mobile Pathways. I realized it's like a separate 501(c)(3). What started that, and what does it do?
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit, like you mentioned, and we build technology for other law firms or for other nonprofits who are helping immigrants in their cases, usually the same type of cases that we do. And what happened was around 2016, 17, I discovered that there's a lot of potential with the technology that can be built for others. So the way that I saw it was that if I started a nonprofit and got funding from other, like maybe Silicon Valley, that was where I was
Hmm.
initially thinking, help fund us. They could help build the technology. Maybe they give us money and then resources, people who can help build it, because they don't. They're not looking for these type to make money off of this. No one's making money off of technology for asylum seekers. And so I knew it wouldn't, if I built products, I wouldn't really sell them. I'm not going to be making money off it. I'm not going to be becoming rich off that.
Hey, everybody, I want to jump in and remind you of our consular processing course. Whether you're starting against consular processing, you want to get into it, you're already doing it, want to get more expertise, want to recommend your friend, go hit me up, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Email me and I'll send you the registration page info. Primarily, we want only lawyers that are barred to be in there. That's the number one thing registration is for. So you just check your bar number. But there are fees applied. It is a premium course, but email me and we'll take you to the next level, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Hope to see you there. Let's get back to the show.
But people need access to them anyway. So if the 501c3, we could kill two birds with one stone. We have people paying for it that aren't asylum seekers that are silicon, and then you get this stuff built that otherwise wouldn't be built. And so we focused on a lot of things like text messaging, bulk messaging to people. A nonprofit may need to get the word out about something in the law to 500 people. We've had people at border organizations that have used our software to bulk message thousands of people and get the communications back. And so these type of tools were not widespread around 2016, 2017. And so we started building them. We started collecting data from government data sources. So the EOIR, that's at the courts, they're always changing their dates of like when someone has to appear.
Yeah.
So what we would do is we would go to those government websites, collect the date, and then update the people saying, hey, by the way, your court date's changed. Don't know if you do that. And so tools that would be practical, that people could incorporate, that they wouldn't otherwise be able to build on their own.
Maybe you should help USCIS with this too. Friday night, we got a bunch of parole emails that are unrelated to clients that closed cases, finished cases, or didn't even have advance parole filed for. They just got all these emails and updates. So hopefully that could be helpful for them.
Yeah, certainly they need a lot of help. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with USCIS.
The recent, everything that's happening in your space, all of immigration is pretty much chaos right now, but you're especially hit hard where just things are changing on a dime. How have you been dealing with the changes and just adapting your firm to these events? You just did a panel actually with Judge Tabador, who was head of the union, one of the chief judges with USCIS. What did you guys actually talk about? Let's talk about that first. What happened? Is that coming up? Has that already happened? The panel you had with her?
Yeah, we had that last Thursday, I believe it was. So just a few days, the end of October. And we talked about trends in immigration. So the nonprofit also collects data and publishes trends, especially with the courts. And we're seeing some spikes in things that we hadn't seen before. And so we were talking about a spike in what's called abandonment, which is a way to code a case, I guess you could say, in the data that says that a person in court or a person who filed their asylum application abandoned their case. Now, traditionally, abandonment is for maybe people who don't show up to immigration court. Say, okay, that they've been abandoned. But in recent weeks and months, there's a lot more abandonment happening. And we're trying to track what's going on there. And for example, the new fees from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, there's a lot of fees for immigration cases. I think you probably know about this. You probably talked about it. And so these fees are maybe like the lack of payment or failure to pay a fee could result in abandonment. I think that actually has started. And we have to see if that picks up. Is that going to be a widespread trend? Another potential trend that we're seeing is where the government is encouraging the judges to open a case and to find it deficient on its face. The application didn't fill out a field, or maybe there's something that the judge doesn't like in the application about what it says about why they're applying for asylum. And so instead of giving them a full hearing date where they can explain everything, which is traditionally how it's been, and that's what the courts are designed to do, they said before you even get to the hearing date, a judge can look at the application and deem it abandoned. And if that becomes widespread, then you could be seeing a completely changed immigration court system in the United States, where the vast majority of cases are not even going to court.
Yeah.
There's something else is happening behind the scenes in a judge's chambers that we may not have access to.
There's thousands and thousands of cases that even lawyers have filed that are skeleton filings because the 1 year clock might be running, so they got to get it in, or it takes time for people to prep the case properly. So let's get this in to lock it in, and then we'll update the record. But that could really hit him really hard at that point if that's the case.
Yeah, yes, you're exactly right. That was the term that judges would say, this is a skeletal application or submit a skeletal application, and for years. And so to me, it strikes me as patently unfair for the system to be designed a way that's been operating for 25 years. And then to say, and then everyone knows and understands
Yeah.
how that system is, and to say, okay, no, actually, we're going to change that. And if we decide that you did something that we don't like now, then your case is thrown
Yeah.
out. And changing the rules of the game when you're playing the game.
Yeah, there's one thing to say from now on after this filing date and stuff like that, but I'm sure there's gonna be lawsuits probably happening anytime soon because I've seen people posting on case termination and removal orders coming for people in this kind of situation for not paying the fee, and it's just throwing everyone off. So those lawsuits are probably coming soon.
I'm sure there are. There's lots of different methods that we see happening all at once. I think one of the most effective methods of creating a procedural deficiency, if you will, is by scaring people to go to court from going to court. So I see that not necessarily with my clients because they know that they're going to go with an attorney who
Yeah.
can see what's going on and help them. But when I go to court now, for the master hearings are preliminary hearings where the judge is trying to understand like who you are, who's your family, where do you live, that type of thing, where they're not even discussing the merits of the case. Those are empty. So you can go into a courtroom and almost nobody's there. And what I don't have an opportunity to talk to all those people, but the consensus is that people are very scared to go because they've seen some high profile people be removed from courthouses. You'll see it on the news
Yeah.
where ICE is going to courthouses. And then you see deportations like the Garcia deportation to El Salvador, which is even more scary, right? Yeah, I don't want to go to a foreign prison
Yeah.
where anything could happen to me. So there's lots of different ways to try to prevent people from having a day in court.
And that leads to an automatic in absentia removal order for not showing up in that master hearing. So they're deportable anyways, yeah, then that way. So
Yeah, someone. Oh yeah, someone just asked me, is it worse to go or worse not to go? I said, well, it's worse not to go because if you go, the chances are not 100% at all
yeah.
that you're going to be picked up. But if you don't go, now you're on a list and now you have no defense.
Wow, what the conundrum. And obviously there's a lot of self-deportation is probably happening at this point. Are you seeing people call your office or clients just say, forget about it, I'm leaving?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's different people are looking for refuge in not Mexico generally, but in Canada. We've seen people go to Spain. We've seen a number of people who are like, you know what, the risks in my country are high, but I want to control my own fate and I don't want to be picked up and taken to another country that I don't even know anybody or put in a prison. So I'm going to depart on my own. We see some people we have a number of people we just can't get a hold of. And we think that they're probably.
Administration and the Supreme Court says it's okay for now is send them to Libya and Sudan, places where there's straight civil war and like anarchy reigning supreme. It's just nuts to do something to people, even if they hear there's better ways to handle it. And plus, they get detained for a long time. There's private prison complex right now, the big beautiful bill, $60-70 billion of money just flowing through for capacity. So it's like a hotel and the government's paying the bill and mandatory that they have to come to you. So it's pretty wild.
And certainly the prisons aren't nearly as nice as a hotel. I've been to prisons where the detainees are held, immigrants. And the thing that people don't understand is the vast majority of immigrants have not committed a crime. And the thought of going to a jail or a prison is probably as scary as it is for them as it is for you or I. I don't want to spend 3 months because they're held in, they're wearing the colored jumpsuits, the yellow jumpsuit, and they're housed with other inmates and have the same rules and the same fences and the same concrete, everything. And what like a terrifying place to be if you've just been like, raising your family and you're just doing your thing on day one. And then on day two, you're picked up and then taken to a detention center somewhere in the United States. They could just, in California, they could ship you over to Louisiana. They could ship you to Florida. They could ship you anywhere they want.
Keep moving people around too. They'll be one place for 2 weeks and they'll ship them some other place. And it makes it hard to even get representation that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had one of our clients, we did not expect to be picked up, but they had the legal authority to do so. And they moved her to Washington. And so the client really can't afford to pay an attorney to go back and forth between here and Washington. And so the quality of representation is just not going to be as good. because we can't go. So we have to do everything by phone or video. And it's an unfortunate situation.
And that really goes to one of the biggest problems happening right now is just being able to get representation for people that have a bond hearing or detained or even immigration court asylum. There's less and less people that just have the bandwidth to do it, and it's just too complicated and expensive nowadays to accept those cases.
Yeah, it is getting more difficult in terms of being able to get people released from detention. Their cases are becoming more difficult. The laws are basically becoming more strict. Cases are moving faster. Stress levels are up. People don't have money for a lot of what they need. Legal services. When you need, excuse me, if you need legal services in the next 3 weeks, who's saved up
Yeah.
enough to hire a lawyer, kind of put down what they're doing, and then to help come to your defense? People just don't have that. Even an American would be unlikely to, in 3 weeks' time, just pay a lawyer to do everything for their defense.
Yeah, and I get people calling me and like, I have a court hearing like in 2 days. How much does it cost? I'm like, even if I did court cases in 2 days, this is unrealistic. It's going to war. It's like I need to armor up and all this. It's hard to get a system up running that quickly. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's hard times.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I was gonna just say and even when it sounds simple, like a court case in 2 days, that that's just the
yeah.
beginning. Because what'll happen is the judge will have you come back. Something will To protect your client, you need to ask for more time. You need to do this and that, and so it's the beginning of a long process.
One last question is: have the new judges come about? There's starting to be military officers to put there and Coast Guard officers, lawyers to come in court. Have you run into that yet in the courthouses you handle, or is it still that haven't been fully trained yet? It's still going through the academy.
We've seen notices that they've hired several full-time and several temporary judges. I haven't seen them on the bench yet.
That's going to be, God willing, they're military people. They have discipline, and hopefully they live up to the standards that are taught to them. But it's going to be a wild ride to learn immigration law in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or whatever.
You're referring to the fact that they're hiring a lot of JAG judges, Judge Advocate General judges from the military.
Hmm.
And I think that there are two. There's one in Sacramento. They actually fired one in Sacramento. And there's still one here in San Francisco. And I think what maybe the administration is not anticipating is that judges, lawyers of all types, there are codes of ethics and responsibilities we have to abide
Hmm.
by that go beyond what the administration wants you to do. John, you and I have to report to the State Bar of California. We have ethical guidelines, and we can't just rubber stamp something because someone is telling us to do it. We can't just create a new theory of law if it doesn't
Yeah.
exist. And so I think it's going to be a bigger challenge to just instill judges who just rubber stamp everything that the administration wants than they may anticipate.
Yeah, it just my thing is I'm thinking it's just hard to learn all this stuff they got to learn, and so there'll be a lot of mistakes. Or their training, they'll say, "Oh, this is how it is." Like for USCIS interviews, I once went to a marriage case where I told the client, "You have such a clean case, you don't need me to come." They're like, "No, come." So the interview got done in like 2 minutes, and I asked the officer, "What do you think like, when an immigration lawyer comes to the interview? Is that positive, negative?" And she immediately responded, "You know what? When got at Academy, it told us if they have a lawyer, that's a major indicator of fraud. So you got to grill them, this and that." And just as soon as I did my first interview, I realized that was just a crock of nonsense. Like it helps having a lawyer to explain stuff. The clients are nervous. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what these forms mean. So I prefer that. So it was a very reasonable officer. Been there for 10 or 15 years. And so it's like grill like this misinformation and they'll on the bench while they're learning, okay, that was a little too harsh. It's not true. But or I had another person on the show, actually, I think they said it. They were a consular officer and they scared him of like marriage fraud and fraud so much that he's like the 15 years I was doing consular interviews, like the first 3 years I was denying people for no reason. Where 15 years later, I was like, oh my God, that was like that's not a red flag. I was misunderstanding it based on what they had taught me and making it sound worse than it was. And so I was like, I did a 180 of what my thoughts were about how the practice is or just approving cases are. It's always like, if you're one of the test people that have to go through that grinder, it's terrible. But that's just baked into the cake, I think, when it comes to dealing with the government.
Yeah, you said something important that I think a lot of people don't understand. A lot of our clients don't understand is that I get that asked a lot too. If I bring you to an interview, does that make me look guilty before I even get there? And I say no. Like you have to understand the officers. Like they don't. In fact, like what you're saying, like a lawyer, a lot of the times has will help prepare everything so that when you get there, you're set, and so it makes it go
Yeah.
faster. You can help explain things to the client before they get there, so they understand what's going to happen. The officers a lot of time rely on talking to the lawyer about a case, this or that, and the lawyer can basically make your case go much
Hmm.
faster. And so I wouldn't worry about it if clients are worried about make them look guilty. I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, I would tell them no at all because that does go around, and some lawyers even say that. I've seen on videos, don't bring a lawyer. It's not. If you could afford it, it's always better to bring a lawyer. It's just expensive. But if I could have a lawyer with me driving next to me in case I get pulled over, it would be the thing to do. But that's not practical. But you never know with the government; they make mistakes, and people get really nervous, or the officer just does some big mistakes. And I could say, "Oh, let me talk to your supervisor," without feeling as bad as a client would that a government officer is doing this. I went to an interview the other day, and the officer had a standing desk, and then she had a chair that was elevated too. So she was sitting like 3 feet above us, while we are sitting down looking up. And I found it humorous. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. But I see the client's face is freaking out. Like, why is this person sitting 3 feet above me, looking down on me? The officer was really cool too. She was really nice, but I was like, she didn't understand the perception of how that looks like when you just walk to a cubicle and someone's sitting 3 feet above you, like it's a real judge in a courtroom in a 4x4 foot or 6x6 foot improve pass. But so it's good to have the lawyer there just to calm me down first and foremost. That I tell my clients, but he has a lot of money. So if unless a client like has specific issues or I'm worried about, I'll give them the opportunity to say yes or no if you need me to come. But some of them, I got to come because I know you to go there and just get too nervous or not be able to explain the situation. I know I've kept you half an hour so far. It's great to have you on the show and get to talk publicly. If people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way they can do that?
Sure. Yeah. A lot of people have reached out to us about understanding more about Mobile Pathways, which is a nonprofit. Jeffrey at mobilepathways.org is a good way. Or you could reach out to me in my law firm too, if you're interested. Jeffrey at o'brienimmigration.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'll have that information in the show notes. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show again. I'll end the show right now. I'll talk to you a few minutes afterwards. But again, thanks again.
Great talking to you, John. Take care.
If you like this episode, follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, where we post the latest statistics, tips, and more. And stay tuned for more from the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast.